And away we go. Oh, look at that. Glitch in the Matrix. Away we go, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. This is Coffee Talk. Coffee Talk, which is live on YouTube and then rebroadcast on Fistful of Radio. So that is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. If anyone is so inclined to go there, I could put memes up on X that I can't put up on YouTube if I wanted to put a post. Anyways, and as I pointed out, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. As I sit here with Dusty folded up in my arms, you see her there, keeping me company for as long as she can tolerate it, because, you know, eventually she's going to want to move around, but she doesn't mind the attention. And of course, in a moment here, we're going to jump into the news and what's going on in the world, and I'll give you my sarcastic take on it, if you will. Since there's so much hypocrisy in it, I can't help but be sarcastic. I can't help it. I really can't. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, naturally, I will read as many of the comments from the live portion as is reasonable so that you can follow along with whatever's going on in the conversation. And so far, I see some of the people who have chimed in here. Helter, Dragon, Keisha is here, Boogers, Bingo, Brian, Kaylin, and Zane have popped in to say hello on again in the chat section. And I can see the chats from both Prepper University and from Coffee Talk, but I cannot see the chats from the X feed. I don't think I can see them. And I see Holly has joined us as well. Glad you could make it today, Holly, as we get ready to jump into some of what's going on in the world today, if you will, or yesterday, or whatever's in the news feed. Some things you may have seen and some things maybe you haven't. And something I brought up yesterday that was really prominent in the news yesterday and still is. They're still hammering this in the news, and it's the most ridiculous thing. And that, of course, is Kamala Harris's record. They're still making that a top news story today, and they've expanded upon it and made it, of all things, a racial issue now, if you can believe that. Because as many of you realize by now, there's a record that was set of her vote being required as a tiebreaker in Congress, and that she's broken the record 32 times, or she's had to vote 32 times, and the previous record was 31, set, I believe, 190 plus years ago. So way back in the old days, the record was set, and she's just broken that record the other day. And Spectre says, what record? Yeah, we're getting into it. And All People is here. Glad you could make it, All People. So she broke this record, and they're making a big deal. Wow, she made history. She broke the record for the most tie-breaking votes. Like that even matters. You know, you're celebrating her basically doing her job. One of her job functions is, if there is a split decision, that she's supposed to go and cast the final vote. Big deal, you did your job. Well, now the titles are reading on these news segments. First, Kamala Harris, first Black vice president, breaks record previously set by slave owner. Not kidding. Not kidding. That's what it says. Previously. Let's make it about race. Booger says the only record Kamala holds is the amount of knee pads she went through in her political career. No, she did that before her political career. That's how she achieved it. So I'm going to, and now it's getting worse. They're so adamant about this being a big deal. She's been presented with an award for it. Not only are they making it a big deal, and not only are they making it about race, but now she's getting an award. I see Raccoon Eyes is here, as well as Urban Angst, and Zane thinks nuclear war is inevitable. So this particular article is from Fox News. This Kamala Harris receives golden gavel after setting a record for tie-breaking Senate votes. Wow, that's fantastic. And there it is. You see the nice gold gavel there being presented to her for doing her job. You know, when I was a manager for Family Dollar, they presented me with a clock once. Is that the same thing? Actually, they didn't even present it to me. They mailed it to me. Just a plastic desk clock that said Family Dollar on it. They Oh man, let me go ahead and read the article and get it over with. It says Vice President Kamala Harris was awarded a golden gavel this week to celebrate her record-breaking amount of tie-breaking votes in the Senate. Harris made the achievement Tuesday with a vote in support of confirming Lauren Ali Khan as the U.S. District Court judge. The vice president's tie-breaking votes have been consequential in moving the Biden-Harris agenda forward over the last 3 years, a White House spokesman said. And there's her gold gavel. Aww. Couldn't think of anyone more deserving. They continued, these tie-breaking votes have helped deliver for the American people by lowering costs for American families, creating good-paying jobs in local communities, and providing economic relief for small businesses across the country. I don't believe any of that. Harris surpassed the record of John C. Calhoun, who served as vice president from 1825 to 1832. Harris was given a golden gavel by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to commemorate the occasion. Oh, doesn't she look surprised? Really? An award for me? Little old me? That is pathetic. It's amazing how they give each other these rewards for nothing. It's like the Oscars or the Emmys or the Grammy Awards or the Nobel Prize or anything these days. It doesn't mean anything anymore. You don't earn it. They just kind of pass it around. They just kind of hand it out. Isn't that right, Dusty? You want to get down, honey? One last look at Dusty, everybody. And we're going to set her on the desk. There you go. And all people said that she's Anglo-Indian, 100% Indian mother, 75% white, 25% East Indian dad from Jamaica. Yeah, she's something like 12.5% black or 1/8, but somehow that makes her the first black vice president. I don't know how that works. And Donna Beaver says, remember, thumbs up. Yes, indeed. Please do give it a thumbs up if you don't mind. And Max says Kamala locked up a lot of black people during her time as DA in San Francisco. Yeah, I bet she did. And Raccoon says everyone gets a trophy. Pretty much. Well, no, I didn't get one. Everyone in the in crowd gets a trophy. That's how that works. Henry says it's a diversity hire. Yeah, she was. And Zane says, why is she getting the award? For as we've been saying, for the record number of times she had to cast the deciding vote in a split decision in the Senate, which is 32. And again, is that significant in any regards? Is that actually an achievement? Is that something to be proud of? Oh, part of my job requirement is I have to make a deciding vote on a split decision in the Senate, and I had to do my job. Give me an award. Did I miss something? And Helter said, so she voted right along the party line, doing something she's very good at that takes no actual thought or judgment whatsoever. Great job. Enjoy the participation trophy. No kidding. Exactly, Helter. And Preparedness Veteran made it. Glad you could make it today. And Dragon says, breaking a tie merely being present and voting your preference is not much of an accomplishment. I'd prefer to know the subject matter of what passed as a result of her vigorous tie breaking. No kidding. And Cruising said, if Pence did this, it'd be called Trump forcing his agenda as an authoritarian dictator instead of being celebrated. Yeah, Pence wouldn't have gotten a gavel. And Deanna Martin is here. Glad you could make it today. And says, just tuning in, is that Michael Jackson? No, that is Kamala Harris. That is Kamala Harris. Although they probably both wear the same amount of makeup. Or, of course, Michael Jackson can't wear makeup anymore. He got his last makeup job when he was buried. And Zane said she broke a record. Correct. She broke a record. And I just wanted to follow that up because they're making such a big deal out of that. The last 2 days in a row, it's been top news in the feed. Top news in the feed. And again, they're making it about race also. Many of the news titles now have been reading, first black vice president breaks record set by slave owner. If that's true, I don't know if the vice president 190 years ago was a slave owner or not. I have no idea. And Semper Fi's made it today. Glad you could pop in as we move around here. And we're going to move around to Herman Munster. We're going to talk about Herman Munster really quickly. And this comes from Fox Business. It says John Kerry pledges to slash emissions from air conditioning units, refrigerators, in order to fight climate change. Yeah. How are you going to do that? And I also see Gary Smith has joined us here today. If it pops up, there we go. Gary Smith, glad you could make it. Thanks for joining us today. It says Herman Munster, U.S. Special Envoy for Climate, having already pledged to close down all United States coal power plants, has now committed to slashing the nation's emissions from cooling-related products in the battle against man-made global warming. Herman made his latest announcement at the annual United Nations Climate Change Summit known as COP28, where the U.S. allied with more than 60 other nations in joining the Global Cooling Pledge, the world's first collective focus on climate warming emissions from cooling equipment and appliances. The pledge commits countries to reduce their cooling-related emissions by at least 68% by 2050 compared to 2022 levels, along with a suite of other targets, including established minimum energy performance standards by 2030. The pledge targets emissions from cooling-related appliances such as air conditioning units and refrigerators. We want to lay out a pathway to reduce cooling-related emissions across all sectors, but increase access to sustainable cooling, Herman told COP28. Emissions from both the refrigerants and the energy used in cooling now account for about 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions. I don't believe that. And are expected to triple by 2050 as temperatures continue to rise. Even though all of their private jets, 80,000 people attended this conference, and their private jets were all hemmed up in Munich because of record snowstorms in Europe. According to the Clean Cooling Collaborative nonprofit group, the CCC. Somebody needs to remind, and I'm sure he knows this. Again, I'm gonna hem on the concept. These people are not nearly as stupid as they come off. John Kerry knows. I believe it's about 80% of the power produced in the United States comes from burning coal firing plants. So you can't just shut that off. You can't shut that off. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Zane says, if you need someone to give the final say, then this shows how destabilized the two-party system really is. I think that they do that on purpose. I think that there's been a lot of split votes in the last few years. You've seen that a lot in the last 3 or 4 years during the Biden administration, particularly. Even in gubernatorial and senatorial elections, I think they're doing it on purpose to make it look split. And Zane says capitalism is flawed, but it's better than communism. I can agree with that. Preparedness says instead of coming up with new harebrained ideas that will never work, they should focus on fixing the rest of their legacy ideas. And Henry says all the while China keeps building new coal plants. Yeah, nobody's telling China or India to do anything. And they're the biggest producers of so-called climate emissions in the world. And Booger says, Kerry has the right idea. Let's start with him and all the other rich people with multiple houses, etc. I bet that he will sing a different tune if he went without all the creature comforts. And he's the one that I called out a few months back because they fact checked him that he does not, in fact, own a private jet. Say, fact check, true. Kerry does not own a private jet because he says he does not and never has owned a private jet. He uses his wife's. So, yeah, you fact check it. It's technically true, but that's equivocation because he uses his wife's jet. She owns a private jet company. So there you go. And Helter says, funny how private jets, motor yachts, and multiple mansions didn't make his list of things to slash. Of course not, because he lives in the lap of luxury. And Urban says, how's the anti-coal attitude working out for Germany this winter? It's going very badly. And Semper says, if Scary Carey wants to lead by example, he should take a 1700s sailing vessel to all of his global meetings. He should walk. He should walk, and when he has to cross the ocean, he should use a paddle boat. So, like I said, I'm sure he must realize that I think it's roughly, and I could be wrong, if somebody looks it up, but I believe it's about 80% of the electricity and the power produced in the United States is coal-fired, with the rest of it being hydroelectric rather, solar, wind power, nuclear, and so on, none of which is very efficient. The nuclear power is not so bad, but the waste is tremendous, and they bury it in Nevada, and it's not an immediate threat, but it's going to be someone else's problem a few centuries down the line. It's not going to keep forever. That stuff has a half-life of like 10,000 years, the waste. So, and we've also seen wind power isn't really working out. A lot of companies, including Norway. Was it Norway that was building the wind power plants in New Jersey? And they backed out of like billions of dollars. They were like, no, we don't want to do it. It doesn't work. The solar power doesn't work en masse. If they really wanted to, and think about this. If you had your own, like let's say you had a house in the country, you had your own little windmill or your own little solar setup, that would help to offset your electric costs. So they could make an edict that says, okay, by 2050, all new homes should be built with a solar array to help offset the electric use. Nobody's going to do that because then the power companies aren't going to make their money. And then the people who back the power companies aren't going to get their kickbacks. And Dragon says, every time Mr. Kerry talks, he emits CO2. Maybe he should try holding his breath in interest of saving the planet. I agree. And All People says, Kamala Harris had slave owner ancestors. Her dad had 0 black blood, not 25, as she lies. I thought it was 12 and a half. Oh, I don't know. The SCOTUS banned the one-drop rule in 1967, so her lie of having 12.5% black blood can't make her black. And even still, if she was 12.5%, whether she is or not, that's not enough for her to get a check. It's, as they say, like, for example, Native Hawaiians or Native Indians have to be at least 50% to get a check. Is that right? If I remember that correctly. And Zane says wind turbines are a leading cause of bird deaths. Yeah, I've been hearing that. As we shift around, and Zane says the power companies are trying to force you to pay for your solar. But yeah, I mean, if you made that a new thing, all new houses will have solar, and that'll lower the expense of the solar since it'll be produced in a larger scale. And that would offset the costs of the electricity going into the homes and relieve the power plants. That would work better than what they're doing. But nobody wants to float an idea like that. Nobody wants to do that. And we're going to shift around to Chicago really quickly here. All the way to Chicago, the Windy City. It's another one from Fox News. It says Chicago residents are irate with Democrats over migrant crisis, and they vowed to disrupt the Democratic National Convention. Are they going to chant "The whole world is watching"? If anybody's old enough to remember that. Residents' animosity towards the Democratic Party runs deep, according to Chicago Alderman Raymond Lopez, who said the anger has only been getting worse due to the growing migrant crisis. The local Democrat official joined Jesse Waters' Prime Time on Monday to discuss how his residents feel about local leaders in the city after activists vowed to make their voices heard during the next summer's Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Next summer? So you're going to hold out till next summer to try to protest? I guess people don't want to stand out in the cold and protest. Let's wait till the summer. Yeah, let's do that. By then, it'll be too damn late. Lopez said the Black community feels abandoned and is no longer feeling the love from Uncle Joe. Did they ever? As the city continues to try to make room and special accommodations for migrants, voters expressed their anger this week at a rally near City Hall, with one activist saying Democrats should not expect the 2024 political convention to be peaceful. When you take a group of people that have paid no taxes, can't vote, and you put them in front of the voters, we're going to show you how we feel about the Democratic National Convention. If you think you're going to have a peaceful Democratic National Convention while our people are starving, stay tuned, he said. That's interesting. And do you think that's going to work? In the 60s, when people were protesting en masse, tens of thousands of people at the DNC, chanting "The whole world was watching," while the whole world was watching, which is why they were saying it, because there were international camera crews there filming the event, as thousands of riot police beat the protesters senseless and dragged them away for days in front of the DNC. And it accomplished zero. What do you think your protest is going to do? Just asking. Mayor Johnson, Governor Pritzker, and President Biden have shown us what they think about the Black community all over this country. You should have realized that before you voted for these people. Why are you acting surprised now? You put a person in office who had been in office nearly 5 decades and accomplished basically zero, and brought in an off-color female vice president, called her Black, and used that to try to garner votes. And I still don't believe 81 million votes. I just don't, but whatever. What did you think was going to happen? How did you think that was going to work out? You're saying you're not feeling the love anymore from Uncle Joe. When did you ever feel it? Did I miss something? Did I miss something? Zane says California already requires all new houses to have solar. I have not heard that. And Keisha made a $2 donation to the channel. Thank you, Keisha. Very much appreciated. Again, goes a long way towards helping with our shelter cats. Cruising says he has a 13 kilowatt of solar, which is enough to offset me when I live alone and about half of what I need with 2 renters. What they don't tell you is any bigger and you have to pay for extra house insurance. Interesting. And Urban says fossil fuels are from fossils, which are the distant past come to life in the form of energy. It's the only way. And Deanna says, I considered solar, but there just isn't enough incentive in my state. I backed out. If I had the money, I would be off grid instead. It's expensive. It's expensive to set that up. And Henry thinks they'll still vote Democrat when it comes down to it. That's possible. That is possible. And Bingo wants to know if Zane lives in California. And we get on with that. I have not heard that about California, so I can't confirm or deny it. I cannot confirm or deny that. But yeah, big surprise. The people in Chicago are frustrated. They're fed up. They're protesting. I think it's a lost opportunity to try to hold out until the DNC to save your big protest. It's lazy. because really all they're doing is trying to stay out of the cold. That's all it is. And if you really want to protest, you'll suffer all weather. You just will. But maybe they're not willing to do that. I don't know. If they really want to make an impact, they should protest all the way until the DNC. And if they believe that they've been betrayed by Democrats, they shouldn't vote for Democrats. And they shouldn't be surprised that their mayor and that the president has turned their back on him. It says Mayor Johnson, Governor Pritzker, and President Biden have shown us what they think about the Black community. It's not what they think about the Black community. It's what they think about all communities. These people are elitists. They don't care about you. It doesn't matter what color you are. They look down upon you all without discrimination. You're all bottom feeders. Monkey says, was going to say Henry. In the end, they'll just vote Democrat and be like, I'd be different. It'll be different this time. Yeah, it'll be different. Sure it will. It'll be worse. Preparedness says, I have a solar system. It's super, but not very effective in the winter months. And Bingo says, is it true that Newsom is making all businesses have a gender neutral section? Yes. Yes, it is. And I think it goes into effect in like March of 2024 or something like that. I think I might have an article on the list about that. And Sane says he's trying to build a new home in California, a lot of red tape. And Urban says, even in Canada, there are people who will keep voting for Trudeau. I consider it a pathological desire for oblivion. Those folks have a strange death wish. And Andrea says, I can't believe I just came on here to hear you talking about solar. No coincidences that I have an appointment with a solar company today. I hope it works out for you. I hope that works out for you. And Preparedness says here there are many container battery storage units being placed around towns to bolster the grid. I've seen that out here in Georgia too, that they're putting in more transformers and more storage areas. And Andrea says, came in late. Anything I should know that may not be great about going solar? Well, they're talking about it a little bit in here. And one of the things that Cruising said was that after you surpass a certain level with your solar array, it increases your homeowner's insurance exponentially. So, and anybody has any negatives that Andrea can ask when the guy comes to talk about solar today, go ahead and throw it in the comment section so she can read that as we move around here. Here's some hypocrisy, since Canada was just brought up. Hypocrisy in Canada. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a political leader in Canada not being totally honest? National Post, first reading. The Montreal systemic discrimination watchdog who seems strangely fine with discrimination. And here she is, and we'll be talking about her. It says, when the city of Montreal inaugurated Bokra Manai as its first ever anti-racism commissioner in 2021. God, these titles. I want to be the anti-racism commissioner. How much does it pay? Controversy immediately swirled over the fact that Manai had once denounced Quebec as an inspiration for the world's white supremacists. While working as a spokeswoman for the National Council of Canadian Muslims, Manai said in French that Quebec has become a model for supremacist extremists around the world. The comments were in reaction to the passage of Bill 21, the Quebec law banning government workers from wearing religious garb while on duty. Quebec Prime Minister François Legault called Manai's nomination an error. Parti Québécois leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon accused Montreal of using public funds to impose a diverse ideology. Of course they are. But the first controversy pales in comparison to the last 6 weeks, as Montreal has become the Canadian epicenter of a spike in anti-Semitic threats and firebombings. Manai hasn't only been strangely quiet, she's even openly attended at least one anti-Israel rally organized by a group that supports extremism. Manai posted pictures of herself in the crowd at a rally where radical Imam Adil Sharkroy. And if I butcher any of these names, I apologize. I don't watch news, I just read it. So if I'm mispronouncing it, it's not intentional. Unless I'm talking about John Kerry and calling him Herman Munster, led a crowd of hundreds in prayer for the death of Zionist aggressors. The rally itself had been organized and promoted by the Palestinian Youth Movement, a group that has been overt in its celebration of the October 7th massacre. So, big surprise. You hired a woman who's part of a Muslim elitist group to be your anti-racism czar, I guess. What was the term? Anti-racism commissioner, excuse me. You made up a job, gave it to her. She's supposed to be anti-racist, but has extremist views and comes from an extremist community. She's part of the club. So why is anyone surprised now that she expresses those views by attending a rally where they're praying for people to die? Anyone else surprised by this? Anyone else? Bingo says that's insane. What if it's a religion-based business? The nerve and hypocrisy. Well, that's modern Canada for you, unfortunately. Merv says, of course, these people that are on welfare want to take care of the illegal migrants until it starts coming out of the welfare check. And Semper Fi says, ask them if you'll get credits for feeding back into the grid monthly. Ask them if you can get a monthly check or cash. Don't let them steal your solar that you're feeding back to them. Interesting point. And Deanna also has a few points about that. Henry says Trudeau will probably give her a raise and a new promotion. And then All People says, why are the leaders of these anti-racist communities always Islamic or African or Caribbean or socialist and communist, but never American or white? Well, I mean, she can't be American because she's in Canada, but I know what you're saying. I get your point. I get your point. And they always hire somebody off color, if you will, so that they can pretend to be diverse in it. Oh, we're going to hire a Muslim woman or whatever. I don't know if this woman actually is Muslim. I'm not sure what her last name, her surname applies to. Like I said, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Bokra Manai. She might be Middle Eastern or of Middle Eastern descent, but she's clearly part of a Muslim group. And it says right here, she's a spokesman for the National Council of Canadian Muslims. So she's already part of that. So it's kind of hard for her to be non-biased. And I'm not surprised at all that she would be at a public prayer rally praying for the deaths of her enemies or who she perceives to be her enemies. Why is anyone surprised by this? Hypocrisy in government? Are you kidding me? I can't imagine. I just don't see it, especially in Canada. Oh, no. It says it was only last year that it became a miniature national scandal that the Trudeau government had given more than $500,000 in anti-racism grants to Laith Marouf, an activist with a lengthy history of extremist rhetoric, including at the mandatory anti-racism seminars he was being paid to coordinate. He made a $500,000 anti-racism grant / donation to an extremist who's obviously racist, who somehow is the coordinator of mandatory anti-racism seminars. Did I miss something? Did I miss something there? Does that make any sense to anybody? That's Trudeau's Canada, ladies and gentlemen. I feel bad for you if you're up there. I feel bad for you if you're up there. Gary Smith says that sounds like Trudeau. Yeah. A lot of double standards there. A lot of sucking up, a lot of bootlicking, and a lot of money, a lot of tax money being thrown around. It's really kind of sad. All People says the end game of the migration invasion is that the Cloward Piven scheme designed to bring in communism by overwhelming the welfare system. Google it. As we move around to voter fraud. Voter fraud. And Semper Fi said, did you see California's Governor Newsom won't partake in the annual Christmas tree lighting? He's afraid the pro-Palestine protesters will show up. Instead, he'll push the on button from his office. Coward. That doesn't surprise me at all. Newsweek says Democrat election win declared void after voter fraud is discovered. Say it isn't so, not voter fraud in the United States. This is a shill article. And I'll tell you why here in a moment. I got two problems with it because I did glaze over this one a little bit. A judge has ruled an extremely tight election between Republicans and Democrats for a Louisiana parish sheriff is void because of voter fraud. The race to become Cato Parish Sheriff was closely fought between Democrat Henry Whitehorn and Republican John Nicholson. In November, a recount was ordered after Whitehorn won by just one vote in an election that saw over 43,000 ballots cast. There we go with an election, and this isn't even a major one. It's a sheriff's office. Split straight down the middle, folks. Again, see how often that's been happening recently? It's bleeding even into these piddly little elections. The recount found 3 additional votes for each candidate, and Whitehorn was declared the winner. And it dives in here. It says Nicholson filed a lawsuit, and retired Louisiana Supreme Court Justice E. Joseph Blythe declared the result void on Tuesday. Nicholson's suit said the count was done too quickly and could not be accurate, while ballots cast by people twice through mail and in-person ballots were discovered. NBC affiliate reported Blythe was assigned to the case after 4 judges refused or recused themselves due to their friendships with Nicholson. So Nicholson's already in bed with 4 sitting judges, so they had to refuse to preside. Let that sink in. In all, Blythe said the 2 people voted twice. 5 mail-in ballots should not have been counted for failure to comply with the law, and there was a further 4 invalid votes by indirected persons who were unqualified voters. The runoff election involved a 1-vote margin, and it was proven beyond any doubt there were at least 11 illegal votes cast. All right. Here's my problem. First of all, these guys are not in law enforcement. They're politicians. A Democrat and a Republican. They're in bed with judges. They're politicians. There were 43,000 ballots cast, but it's decided over a count with 11 illegal votes. And this is your voter fraud that's been exposed. There's 11 illegal votes that you think you found. And I love how whenever they expose a voter fraud case, they pretend like it's really piddly. Oh, we only found 11 illegal votes. I'm not worried about the sheriff's office vote. Thirdly, why is a sheriff's vote so political? I have problems with that. And I brought this up before. Your local sheriff, judges in a lot of districts, it's very political. The district attorney, very political. To me, the sheriff's office is not something that should be picking sides politically. But this is the position that we're in. I got a lot of issues with that story all the way around. Dragon says folks need to wake up and recognize that this is hands down the most important issue today. If we don't have legitimate elections, then the owner's elites will continue to lord over the masses. I just have I find it very difficult to believe that since the onset of the Biden administration in particular, not that it didn't happen before, but it's accelerated over the last 3 years. Everything is coming down to a split decision vote to now we're seeing this with the sheriff's office in parishes in Louisiana. I don't believe that every vote is that close. I just can't buy it. That's as fishy to me as a landslide victory. where, if somebody won by like 95%, I'd be like, you sure about that? Are they really that popular? Or is the other guy that much of a dick? You know what I mean? I find that a little difficult to swallow. The no pun intended. But again, why is a sheriff's office? I know that most sheriffs look at the sheriff's runoffs for LA County and places like that. Very extremely political. People that have no understanding of law enforcement or policing at all running for these jobs. I would rather see a qualified person with zero political ties. Can't get that. Can't get that anymore. It's in everything. It's in everything. It's dividing everything. Sick to death of it. And this was brought up earlier. It's something about Newsom, Governor Nuisance in California, in his new edict about toys. This comes from the Daily Mail. California retailers that refuse to have gender-neutral toys for children will be fined up to $500 under the new law, ultra-woke Gavin Newsom law, after an uproar over something. It cuts off on the title. It's an incomplete title. Urban says, if I were directing a space move with hostile galactic reptilians attacking Earth, I would cast Gavin Newsom as their leader. He's got the look with that frozen hair and smile. You think so? So here we go. This was brought up a little bit earlier in the discussion. It says California retailers that refuse to have a gender-neutral section for children will be fined up to $500 under Gavin Newsom's new bill. Is that $500 a day, or just $500 in general? Fine me $500 if I own Walmart and move on. But is it a day or once only? The ultra-woke governor signed legislation in 2021 that would require some retail stores in the Golden State to have a gender-neutral section for children. Retailers would have to do this regardless of whether they have been traditionally marketed for either girls or boys, the bill said. The legislation, Assembly Bill number 10584, will be enacted on January 1st, 2024, and if retail department stores choose not to comply, they will have to dish out a civil penalty of $250 or $500. Department stores that are subject to the new law will have to have a total of 500 or more employees, be physically located in California, and sell childcare items or toys. Okay, well, that's a big department store. That's not a mom and pop operation if you have 500 or more employees, but still, that's government telling a retail outlet how to planogram their store. According to the bill, childcare items refer to any product that is designed to facilitate sleep, feeding children, relaxation, or to help children with sucking or teething. The age range of the children that the legislation refers to is 12 years of age and under. Toys were defined as products designed or intended to be used by children by the manufacturer. Californian Democratic Congressman Even Low backed the bill to the Associated Press. We need to stop stigmatizing what's acceptable for certain genders and just let kids be kids, he said. They want to let kids be kids, but everything they do interferes with child development. Walk into a public school and tell me if kids are being allowed to be kids. That's insulting. That's the talk. There you go. Pot calling the kettle black there. We need to stop stigmatizing what's acceptable for certain genders and just let kids be kids. My hope is this bill encourages more businesses across California and the U.S. to avoid reinforcing harmful and outdated stereotypes, Lowe said. Harmful and outdated as of 10 years ago. Stigmatizing what's acceptable for certain genders. Encourages more businesses across California. Yeah, if you're going to fine them, I guess they don't have much of a choice. The congressman added that he was incredibly grateful to receive Governor Newsom's signature and support on the bill. The legislation comes after the popular American retailer Target was slammed for its sale of Pride seasonal items in spring of 2023, which ought to tell you that this is not what people want. Not what people want. Zane says intended to be used by children. Oh, wow. That is just sickening. Rodney says, bizarre that people keep electing people like Gavin Newsom. Yeah, you got to wonder how that keeps happening, Zane. Rodney, excuse me. I wonder how that keeps happening. 81 million votes, Biden, just reminding you. Henry says, next will be the creation of the gender-neutral toy police to enforce it. Yeah, I wonder what their uniforms will look like. A rainbow stripe armband. Dragon says, of all the problems we have in California right now, Newsom feels a business toy aisle is a problem. Weakest governor ever. And then Deanna says, I don't think that California gets fair elections at all. Major corruption. That could be. And Gary says, sounds like Target was ahead of the curve. They were behind the curve because people were so pissed off at it that they had to remove those displays. They had to remove the Pride displays. Many stores across the country relocated them to another part of the store or took them down altogether to avoid the public outcry. And it still hit them pretty hard because their stock took a dip for a little while there as people were boycotting them. And Zane says California has rigged elections. I can see where you would think that. And Helter says using the alphabet crowd to bully people into accepting more state intervention into their personal lives is wrong. It's vexing that Newsom can strong arm people into accepting his BS nonsense. And Preparedness says, can't believe how stupid the situation has gotten around the world. Looks like we need more people like the new Argentinian prime minister. And Urban says he heard a conspiracy theory. It's all an evil plan by Skittles to take over the free world. Sorry, feeling silly from the news today. They probably do want to take over the world. They want your kids. They want your kids. And this is another one. You force people to accept this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You force people to accept it. You force them to suck it up. And we roll into even more of that. Because this happened just recently also because some transmogrified men won a cycling race, and there's outcry about this. And it's Sportskeeda is the article here, or where the article comes from. Sportskeeda. Riley Gaines, an advocate for women's safety, has always opposed the notion of transmogrified athletes competing in women's sports. She recently expressed her resentment after two transmogrified athletes dominated in the women's categories at the Illinois State Cyclocross Championships. Tessa Johnson and Evelyn Williamson, the transmogrified athletes, secured the top two positions in the women's categories in a single speed event, which landed Kristen Chalmers, a female athlete, in third place. Moreover, Johnson went on to claim second place in the women's half-acre cycling event and won $150 prize money. $150, is that correct? Williamson, who's 30, has been competing in the women's category since 2017 and has accumulated a total of 18 titles so far. In 2020, the transmogrified athlete competed in both men's and women's categories at the Sky Express Winter Criterium, securing first place in the women's category. Earlier, Johnson competed in the men's category at Clemson University. Make up your mind. Gaines criticized the incident and the USA Cycling, stating there are no categories for women cyclists to compete in. She even urged the female athletes to refrain from competing against male athletes, saying that she would be happy to compensate them for the prize money that they miss. Riley Gaines has vehemently spoken for the safety of women in sports since the 2022 NCAA championships incident, when Leah Thomas, a transmogrified athlete whom she was competing against in a 200-yard freestyle event, was awarded a trophy, even though both the swimmers tied for fifth place. Recently, the former NCAA swimmer encouraged the coaches, the parents, and other male athletes who align with her views to back the female athletes by saying, I believe everything happens for a reason, but I wish I realized what a slippery slope this was when we were told to smile and step aside so a man could have our place on the podium. My actions would be different now, and I wouldn't compete. I know it's easier said than done, but sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. That being said, this burden shouldn't be placed entirely on female athletes. Coaches, parents, male athletes should take a stand if they believe women deserve fair sport and equal opportunities. I do. Unfortunately, though, her compensating these women for stepping aside, it's not going to help. Part of the problem is that obviously a lot of times athletes participate in a sport for accomplishment, not for money, especially when you're talking about like $150 in prize money. That's nothing. But these guys will still get in there, shoehorn themselves in, pretend to be girls, and ruin it for these people, coming in first and second place and putting a professional female cyclist on the back burner. That's just sickening. It bothers me a lot. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. As I try to get back to the top here, because the article slipped way down. I thought there was a picture of them here, but I don't see it. I'm not seeing it, unfortunately. The two dudes, and you can tell they're dudes. I'm sorry. You can tell. Zane says all sports are naturally unfair. There will always be someone who has a biological advantage. Armin says, wonder what Gavin's goals really are. Is he just grifting for popularity and money? He's trying to destroy the state. Newsom is trying to destroy the state so that those tech billionaires can buy up huge sections of property to build their 15-minute cities, their utopian cities that they're already purchasing tons of land for and starting to build on. The lawmakers in California, I believe, have completely sold out their constituents for some kind of payback or kickback. Monkey says the best thing women athletes can do is not accepting going against a transistor athlete. And Urban says they wonder what the actual parallels are between the current era and the final years of Rome. In many ways, they would have been progressively more woke and debased. You can see it in their art. Yeah, and the more decadent a society becomes, the more wealthy a society becomes, the more decadent it becomes, and the more it gravitates towards that type of excess, especially sexual excess. And when that reaches a pinnacle, that society collapses, historically speaking, and Rome's a great example of that. Gary says, if you have to say 100 female entrants, how do you decide? If you have, say, 100 female entrants, how do you decide who gets the prize? I don't know. But if they don't like it, then walking away is the only way that they're going to be able to protest. Saying, I'm not going to do it. And they sucked it up for a long time, as Riley Gaines commented on in that article, that she was told, just grin and bear it and smile and wave and don't worry about it, until she just couldn't tolerate it anymore, until she couldn't take it anymore. And then she decided to take a stand and has been very outspoken about it ever since. The only way that you're going to get anywhere with that is by refusing to participate. That's the only way it's going to work. As we shift around here to video games, because GTA, Grand Theft Auto 6 is out, and people are pissed off at it. People are pissed off at it. And this is from The Gamer. And it says, gamers are already complaining that GTA 6 is woke. And that's a shot from GTA 6 right here. It says, we finally have our first official look at Grand Theft Auto 6, with the trailer reaching a staggering 67 million views and 7.5 million likes within the last 24 hours. But while most of the reception has been positive, some gamers are mad about a woman being at the forefront, spreading rumors that Lucia is trans, and getting angry that black people exist. This is white replacement theory. One YouTube commenter posted, another said, not a single white person is in the trailer. Big surprise. This is despite, according to the U.S. Census itself, Miami being incredibly diverse, which is what Vice City, where GTA 6 is set, is based on. Well, if it's incredibly diverse, then how come it's all black people in the trailer? I don't think that's incredibly diverse. Expectations that GTA 6 will be nothing like we've ever seen before could be met, and it's all thanks to Rockstar Rage Engine. 66% of the Miami Gardens population is black, while Hispanics make up 30.8%. There are regions with majority white populations, such as Miami Beach and Miami City, but GTA 6 draws a lot of inspiration from Gardens in particular. We'll see. One point, though, and this is talking a lot about what people had to say on TikTok and stuff. I don't care about that at all. But one thing in particular I have noticed is that has been coming into the gaming community quite a bit with these first-person role-playing game scenarios over the last few years, and there's been a lot of complaints about it. So if a system as popular as Grand Theft Auto seems like it's leaning in that direction, people are going to get pissed off about it. People are going to get pissed off about it. It remains to be seen. You know, the trailer is one thing. How is the game going to play out is going to be more important. Raccoon says trans hookers. Haha. Yeah, no kidding. And Urban says, total up the amount of the lost female sports scholarships that allow marginalized biological women to get an education. And Monkey says, a lot of the people I hear saying about GTA 6 is happy with it. I don't play any modern games, so I don't know. Cruising says it's GTA 6. They must be following FBI crime statistics. And Helter says people's biggest concern is the loss of satire in the game. That's one of the biggest elements that draws them to GTA. I have no idea. I think I think the only GTA game I've ever played is Vice City on PlayStation 2. I haven't played any of the other ones. And quite frankly, it got boring after a while. Almost all of those first-person player games are like playing the same game over and over again. They just change the skins. It's the backdrop is different. Instead of being on the beach, you're in space, or you're in the desert, or you're in Las Vegas, or whatever. They all look like the same freaking thing over and over again. It gets dull. So I don't know. And maybe it's just because of the era I grew up in. But yeah, Vice City's the only one I ever played. Urban says, if popular video games represent important hero myths of our culture, what does that say about the popularity of a game of stealing cars and causing chaos? Yeah. And Monkey says he thinks that GTA 6 is based off of Vice City, the Vice City area. Inspector says the only game I play is Fallout 4. You can build settlements just like a homestead. Okay, interesting. I never played that. And Dragon says people will continue to spend their money on the same game. There's no originality in the reboot culture we live in. And there's no imagination either, because there's no room for imagination in modern video games, because you're playing through a scenario of someone else's imagination. You're following through their storyboard layouts. So where's your imagination in all of that? Nowhere to be found. But hey, young people today don't have much imagination anyway, do they? And with that, I'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. Of course, this is Coffee Talk. You have been watching and or listening to Coffee Talk. So at Coffee Talk Live or Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me there, or at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Special thanks again to Keisha for making a donation to the channel today. Very much appreciated, Keisha. Always helps. Any donation helps, whether it goes to the channel or to the PayPal or to the P.O. Box or whatever. Always appreciated. And with that, I will go ahead and wrap things up. Hope everybody got something out of the conversation today. And we will see you again tomorrow.